still could be a tropical storm. I just want to get that through your mind. Category 4 in Florida, tropical storm in the Atlantic. And by the way, I know we don't like to compare, but the only reason I want to compare this one to Florence in this instance is because Florence was such a different beast, yet it produced 24 reported tornadoes. So that's why I want to compare the two, Jim, because Florence, very, very different. We're not going to see flooding like we did in Florence. The size, the speed, everything is different about it. The only similarity is that majority of hurricanes are going to cause tornadoes.
Yeah, but be ready. You're right for the tornadoes, because we are going to get a watch that's going to come out, Steph, including the Florida Panhandle, where both you and I are. So that's the first thing we want to talk about. So let's talk about this inland track, because Steph mentioned it's coming in. It's going to work its way to areas that were hit by Florence as well. And what's really interesting is you're going to see a tremendous transition, because now, instead of just finding the hole between the trough and the ridge, now it's actually going to get an injection of energy from the trough. So that's going to create one heck of an extratropical low off the East Coast, by the way. It's going to be a big, big ocean storm as it moves off the coast. But let's get it through there first. The other thing, too, is now we face 140, 145-mile-an-hour hurricane. We talked about this yesterday. And granted, that core wind field is small, and the hurricane wind field itself is small, and that should collapse. But the forward speed will slow its deterioration because it's so big. I mean, you don't just go from 100 miles an hour down to 60. I mean, we're at 145 now. Then we got to go to 100. Then we got to go to 120, and then down to 80. So that's going to keep that wind damage potential up through places like Charleston, Savannah, Columbia, possibly even Wilmington. And Wilmington, having dealt with Florence, you guys are under a tropical storm warning from this. All right, so we could see tropical storm conditions within 24 hours in Wilmington, North Carolina. Imagine that by this time tomorrow morning. All right, so power outage potential. Notice how we've turned up that map a little bit. Most widespread are going to be where that core of 100-plus mile-an-hour winds comes ashore. We're going to see our heaviest rain in the bands there. And then again, with the acceleration, rainfall amount should generally be less as this climbs toward the northeast. Kelly, places like Atlanta, Georgia, certainly busy. Boy, I'll tell you, you put 7-8 inches of rain over Atlanta and you got a big problem. It looks like right now the heaviest rain will stay south of the Atlanta metro area.
Yeah, and Jim, the winds will be an issue too. As you know, a lot of trees in this area of North Georgia, and that will be a concern as Michael continues its approach toward the Florida Panhandle. The impacts already being felt on Florida's west coast, including here in Tarpon Springs. This is about 40 miles northwest of Tampa. Storm surge, high tide inundating the streets there, and we're well away from the storm. So let's talk impacts. Atlanta, yes, it will get breezy here, but the worst of the weather with Michael is going to be well to the south and east. Thunderstorms today into tonight, very windy. Temperatures held down because of the cloud cover, but it will be very humid out there with this tropical atmosphere. Hurricane warning showing up in the purple, but as Jim mentioned, we've got the tropical storm warning showing up in the red, far inland and even over towards Savannah and up towards Wilmington as well. Like we need any more rain in the Carolinas, still devastated by Florence. Tallahassee, the timing for us, it is all day today. Rainfall to come, about 5 to 8 inches of rain. Of course, the storm surge is going to be very high along the coastline. We'll be right back.
What does Help for Heart Failure look like? It looks like this. Entresto is a heart failure pill that helped keep people alive and out of the hospital. Don't take Entresto if pregnant. It can cause harm or death to an unborn baby. Don't take Entresto with an ACE inhibitor or aliskiren, or if you've had angioedema with an ACE or ARB. The most serious side effects are angioedema, low blood pressure, kidney problems, or high blood potassium. Ask your doctor about Entresto.
The beat goes on.
Yeah. When nighttime nasal congestion closes in, Breathe Right strips are designed to simply open your nose right back up. Breathe better, sleep better. Breathe Right.
With 18 million viewers. Wow. The return of Tim Allen and Last Man Standing is the smash hit of the season.
I want this, so I am overruling you.
You can do that?
Last Man Standing, all new, Friday on Fox.
Does this map show the Peninsula Trail?
You won't find that on a map. I'll take you there. Take this left. If you listen real hard, you can hear the whales.
Oh. Hear that?
Our Subaru Outback lets us see the world. Sometimes in ways we never imagined.
What if you had the confidence to browse less and brush more? And a helping hand that empowers you to take your project into your hands. At the Home Depot, you get our 100% satisfaction guarantee, so you can stop pinning and start painting with America's top-rated paint and the know-how to get more out of a color you love. Now, let's turn the idea you saved online into a room designed for sharing. Now get the best paint for any budget starting at $18.97. The Home Depot. More saving, more doing.
Nothing outlasts Energizer Ultimate Lithium. Hey, you can't do that. Can he do that?
Yeah, he's good.
Energizer Ultimate Lithium. It's the #1 longest lasting battery.
Our craftsmen begin each day perfectly seasoning our Hillshire Farm smoked sausage. So by simply adding the right ingredients, you can end each day crafting a...
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to have an attorney.
Ma'am, he'll be read his rights and taken to the station.
What about my rights?
In Florida, those accused of a crime are read their constitutional rights. But what about victims? No criminal should have stronger rights than their victim. It's time for equal rights. It's time for Amendment 6.
In the 70s, Bill Nelson wears his first suit in Washington, begins unremarkable career. He managed to raise taxes and cut Medicare. Nelson is called an empty suit, adored by big money. Nelson even skips national security briefings and leaves hearings about the algae bloom. After nearly 40 years in D.C., he votes with his party 89% of the time. It's been an empty career, and it's time to retire. Empty suit, Bill Nelson. New Republican PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
69 and enter KNOCK.
Breaking news for the National Hurricane.
All the rain in the forecast created the opportunity for the perfect crime.
Storm of Suspicion. All new episodes Sunday nights at 8.
Currently in our area, 82 degrees with heavy rain. Today, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. High 90. Chance of rain 80%. Tonight, partly cloudy skies early will give way to cloudy skies later at night. Low 78. Winds south at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Thursday, thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. High 90. Chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
All right, guys, some pretty pictures to share with you and through here. It's only pretty when you look at it from space. You don't want to be any part of this thing, of course. This is the International Space Station. The crew of taking a picture of Hurricane Michael from 255 miles above the Earth. That was about noontime yesterday as it was starting to rapidly develop. Cruise ships, obviously, you can see why they would have a tough time going around that. Also, aircraft. Think about it. If you got a flight from Tampa to San Antonio, you're going to have to go around this thing a little bit. You have to probably come a northerly route up toward the Gulf Coast and then to the southwest. That probably added some time to your trip. Some new information this morning to share with you on certainly what could be a historic storm in terms of its size in category, the Saffir-Simpson category being 4. We've never had a 4 to the Panhandle, ever, going back to 1851, and we've only had 4 others of category 3 strength. All right, so here's your tornado watch. This goes until 5 o'clock tonight. We're going to watch these bands come ashore. There's low-level helicity, low-level shear, low-level spin, and if that is entrained in the storms, they will come on shore, and they will be moving. And they will come from the southeast, and they will move more than likely northwest. So be on the lookout for that. Let's go to the radar presentation here because this is important as well. If you look at the bands, you can see them. They're going to show up in bright yellow in there. Gina, zoom in nicely on that because I want to show everybody the core of the storm. And it's this core that you see around the center that contains those 140-mile-an-hour winds. Where that goes, is it Panama City? Is it Port St. Joe? Is it Destin? All right? You're in the cone. Everybody's in the cone. Is it Apalachicola? that's where you're going to get the wind in addition to the surge, especially on the right side of that. So it's really important that we watch this radar and follow it as it moves to the north. Either way, let us watch the radar. You guys at home worry about preparing and getting ready to lose power later on this morning and perhaps this afternoon. Why? Because we have a much stronger hurricane. We went to bed last night with a major. We woke up with a major plus. Now we got a Cat 4. The pressure's dropped. We've had 30 millibars in 30 hours here. Just a tremendous drop, 24 hours actually. And you notice the responding wind with that. It has gone up. All right, so pressure goes down, wind goes up. That's the relationship with these storms. So what's been really interesting about this storm, though, is usually the pressure goes down first, and then the winds respond and go up with a little bit of a lag time. But the winds have corresponded almost immediately with the pressure drop. So all these are different. This is my 98th hurricane, and none of them are the same. None of them. All right, so let's talk about this. Wind comes in, big wind. Where is this? Destin, Panama City, Port St. Joe. Somebody gets cream with the wind, and even outside that, remember, our hurricane force gusts are going to go 40 miles outside that center. And look at how long it takes that wind field to wind down. You're still looking at a well-developed center, even into Georgia. So 100-mile-an-hour gusts, perhaps even into Albany, Georgia. Tremendous. And then longer, again, with it accelerating, the wind is going to wind down because it's a stronger storm. We're talking about Columbia, South Carolina. We are talking about Raleigh, even Wilmington, where Stephanie and I both covered Florence back just a little while ago. All right, speaking of my partner, Stephanie Abrams, I want to bring her in. She is in Port St. Joe. Steph, you're in what could be the maximum surge area should the center come over me in Panama City. What are you looking at in terms of surge, and how high are you right now? Let's show our viewers.
Right. So, okay, let's do it. So 9 to 13 is our surge forecast for this area. The beach, we're going to take you out there once the sun comes up. At 7:40 is our sunrise. But what I'm going to show you are the homes in this area. We're right. I mean, literally, the water's just going to come right through here with no problem. This is one of the older homes. This is one of those wooden beamed homes. Okay. Now they're all elevated here on the beach. But again, this is one of those wooden beams. So that first floor is probably what, about 10 feet high or so. You see the home behind me, also elevated there. So they at least have that. But with the waves crashing, it's going to be problematic. Now, what happens is, Jim, is that, and for our viewers at home, by the way, I'm not just telling Jim, you see the slant that goes up from the beach. All right, so that's the road. And then you see off behind me, even higher than that, Jim. I don't know if it reads on TV, but then you literally have to drive up the hill of the driveway to get to our house. And our cameraman, he has equipment where he can determine exactly how high the house is. So it is 24 feet high, that house. So that's why we feel comfortable when it comes to the surge and the wave action being in that house, because we will be 24 feet up.
Excellent, Stephanie, and be safe, as we always tell our crews out through here. Let me show you where I am and what we've got, all right? I'm a lot closer to the water than Steph is, but depending on the center, if it goes to our west, we're going to maximize. We're going to get 13 feet of surge here. All right, the ocean's probably 30 yards outside me, and it's just a gradual slope about like this. So the top of this decking here is about 9-10 feet. All right, there's a pretty strong wire mesh here that could hold some of the debris, because remember, you've got waves and water that could come up over the top of this, especially with 13-foot surge. So what does that include? It includes all this decking area. It includes the pool. But Brad, pan up to the pillar here. Look at how high that first floor is. Okay, that's about 20 feet off the ground. That's where the second floor rooms start. So sure, this is a fairly new structure. It's built to code, but it is certainly ready for whatever Michael has to offer. An unprecedented storm, guys. I hope you're out of the way of the surge. I hope you're out of the way of the destructive wind. We'll be back.
652 hours of live TV. 32 days out in the elements. And one legendary field test.
We got a good old-fashioned blizzard here.
We challenged the Weather Channel to put our Squall Parka through winter's worst and use their feedback to make it more functional, comfortable, and winterproof than ever before. The new Squall Parka, field tested by the Weather Channel, made even better by Land's End. Guaranteed, period.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and ServPro.com.
You never forget your first race. And you never back down from the next. You're the brotherhood of muscle.
AT&T provides edge-to-edge intelligence, covering virtually every part of your finance business. And so if someone tries to breach your firewall in London and you start to panic, don't. Because your CTO says we've got allies on the outside and security algorithms on the inside. And that way you can focus on expanding into Eastern Europe. And that makes the branch managers happy, and yes, that's the branch managers happy. AT&T provides edge-to-edge intelligence. It can do so much for your business, the list goes on and on. That's the power of and. And when this happens, you'll know how to quickly...
Okay, everyone. Our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Great tasting Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. Ensure, now up to 30 grams of protein for strength and energy.
Domino's delivery drivers are experts at handling bad roads. But those roads shouldn't ruin your pizza when you carry out. So we're doing something about them, starting with this one. If your drive home is rough on pizza, tell us at pavingforpizza.com so we can fix roads across the country. Then carry out large 3-topping pizzas for $7.99 each.
Incomparable design makes it beautiful. State-of-the-art technology makes it brilliant. The Lexus NX. Experience the crossover in its most visionary form. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
Welcome to Tide Pods Talk with Gronk. I'm Gronk. I'm big and awesome, but this guy is little. Can it really clean? Heck yeah, it can. It's concentrated detergent plus stain fighters plus odor fighters that fight for clean. Boom! Ugh. Even this entire bottle can't beat Tide Pods. And now a word from future Gronk. Ugh. Tide Pods. If it's clean, it's got to be Tide.
Hurricane Michael is a monstrous storm, and the forecast keeps getting more dangerous.
This morning, we have a monster in the name of Hurricane Michael, a Category 4, with a brand new advisory at 6 a.m. saying the pressure is down to 937 millibars. Our winds at 140 miles an hour, could be at 145 when this thing makes landfall. This is unprecedented. We have never had a Category 4 make landfall in the panhandle of Florida. Surge is going to be 9 to 13 feet at its worst. I'm meteorologist Stephanie Abrams in Port St. Joe. Jim Cantori is just off to my west, about 30 to 40 miles, in Panama City Beach. We'll get to him in just a minute, but first we want to get you up to date on the very latest. As residents in northern Florida are, racing to finish up, you should be done by this morning with your preps. This is when you need to be in a shelter or going to a shelter right now, okay? Jim and I, again, he is just off to my west, and here's what we know for the state of Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. States of emergency have been declared ahead of Michael. Mandatory evacuation for coastal areas of Gulf County, that's the county I'm located in. Cities in Apalachicola, Alligator Point have shut their water and sewage system. President Trump has approved emergency declaration for Florida. Let's talk to Jim. Jim, only 4 landfalling Category 4 hurricanes on record. And you've got to go back to the 1800s, 1950 to see the last one that made landfall in October. This is going to be breaking so many records.
Abrams, here's what came to my mind when you announced that, and when Greg told us in my ear. When you think about October hurricanes, the big ones, Hazel in 54, Wilma, certainly for Florida, their pressures were not that low. This could be one of the lowest, if not the lowest pressure in October that we've had with a landfalling hurricane. In addition to the fact that we've never had a Cat 4 that, by the way, is trying to become a Cat 5 to come into northeastern Florida. So this is just unprecedented through here. You're absolutely right, Steph. A lot of records with this one. It's historic already in just the fact that it's dropped this low. All right, so let's talk about what we've had so far. Yesterday, if you were watching us in the sunshine on the west coast of Florida and wondering why you looked outside at your beach house and the water's coming up, well, you can thank Michael. That's the storm surge, all right? Madeira Beach is one of those areas. Already had water up at the beaches, water in homes in some cases there, and along the walkway. Horrible situation there. As I mentioned, a lot of these areas were just absolutely hammered yesterday. We had white caps on some of the water. We had waves coming into Tampa Bay. I mean, just unbelievable. Let's take a look at this live camera. This is Cedar Key. I was here for Matthew early on, and you can see the waves lapping up against the side here. Now, we haven't seen the maximum surge yet. And what's interesting is we may have to wait till the storm comes closer to shore. It's going to come up as the tide comes up, and it could certainly overwash that road in through there. Again, guys, 937 millibars. If you are joining us this morning, that is the new pressure. G-Dime, I'm going to stop for a second, and I want you to tell me in my ear. Is this the lowest one? Hazel. Okay, so Hazel was 938. So here we are, okay? Hazel was 938. So that was the lowest pressure ever in October, and also the farthest north latitude that we had that. So this one's fighting Hazel to be the lowest pressure ever for an October hurricane. Unbelievable. Thank you, Greg Diamond, for getting that information. I knew you would. All right, so guys, again, we've only talked about Cat 3s coming into the Panhandle of Florida ever, regardless of month. All right. This one's going to be at least a Cat 4, and maybe it's trying to get to a 5. So again, like we talked about yesterday, the stronger this system is when it comes in, and granted that core wind field of those strongest winds is relatively small, but the whole storm, as it comes in, especially if it's intensifying like it is right now, is going to have a longer time period to wind down. So, in other words, if you're watching us from Albany, Georgia, or Tallahassee, or even into Macon, Georgia, your wind threat just went up a little bit just because the storm is still strengthening. So it's going to take a longer time for this thing to wind down, even though it will. Storms always deteriorate in intensity once they make landfall. But this thing, again, is going to take a long time. All right, guys, again, we are on final approach. Radar already showing some of the banding here. We've got a new tornado watch out until 5 o'clock, including much of the Florida Panhandle in here. As these bands come ashore, they will produce stronger and stronger winds, heavier and heavier rainfall as well. And look at those inland, look at those winds already offshore. We've got winds 50, 60 miles per hour there. And the fact that you've got a 145-mile-an-hour hurricane, look at those hurricane warnings. They go well into southwest Georgia. So if you're driving I-75 later on this afternoon and tonight, guess what? It's going to be a wild ride. I-10 is also going to be impacted heavily with this as well. All right, Steph, take us from landfall and beyond, because we're not done with this storm.
No, we're not. So let's talk about what's going to happen with this and when it's going to come ashore. And it's going to blast ashore. It's going to be strengthening as it comes ashore. Some hurricanes are strengthening. Some hurricanes are weakening. This one could be strengthening. Okay, so where do you see the worst winds? The worst winds are right in that eye wall. Where you have the eye, that is the calm. That is where you are going to see that center of circulation. On the radar, that's the clear. You can see the blue right through the center. But right around that, the eye wall is where you have the worst of it. And of course, hurricane force winds extending out, 45 miles from the center. Tropical storm force winds extending out almost 200 miles from the center. So it is wide reaching, this system. Now, what might happen, and there's no reason that this wouldn't happen, is the National Weather Service in Tallahassee might issue an extreme wind warning. This is going to be just before it comes ashore. Now, this basically means this is it. All right, this is the worst of it. So if you see an extreme wind warning, that means you got to hold tight, hold steady. They usually last for 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. They'll issue that, and then that will go. But that's when the worst of it is coming in. Tropical storm force winds. There's a very high probability that these are going to extend not only into in Georgia, but South Carolina, even North Carolina. We get tropical storm force winds. Of course, those hurricane force winds are going to be extending into even Alabama, the Dothan area, and potentially into Georgia. So let's talk about the wind gusts. The highest we've had so far on land, Apalachicola, about 40 miles an hour. Of course, the winds offshore, you're going to see those a lot stronger as there's less friction over the water than there is over land. So watch those gusts, first coming in. And that's why we want you, to just pay attention to the winds getting a little gustier. I can tell it's already starting to get a little breezier here as the morning has moved on. And we've been seeing the rain all morning long. And then the surge, where we are 9 to 13 foot surge. It's here over towards Apalachicola, over towards the Big Bend. That's where we'll see that highest push of water. And of course, Jim, anywhere you have that little shape, it like concaves, the water gets gets pushed in and nowhere to go. So that's the worst. All right, I'm not sure if Jim can hear me. We're going to go to him to talk more about surge right now and the potential. And Jim, again, the path of this is going to make it or break it for some people.
Absolutely. If this, like where I'm standing right here, if the storm comes at us, we're looking at 6 to 9 feet. If it goes over us or just to our east. All right. If it goes to my west, if it goes, like say, over toward Destin or just maybe even 10 miles to my west, we're going to maximize the surge. We'll be at 13 feet. And that's going to make all the difference in the world in the water coming up over and into some of these buildings here along Panama City Beach. All right. Water's already rising. You've got such a big circulation. And Jen yesterday did a wonderful explanation about the continental shelf that exists in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So that water rise, okay, because of that shelf, created scenes like this in Clearwater Beach. Already pushing over the sand, across the street, into the front doors of the Hyatt Regency. And, of course, this is well away from the center of the storm. We will see more of this up into the Big Bend, Appalachia Bay, and onto the Florida Panhandle as well. And that's why these storm surge warnings are pretty extensive. They go outside the cone. We don't expect the center to go to Cedar Key. We don't expect the center to go near Tampa at all. But we do expect the surge component to be a part of your weather in these areas, even with sunshine at times. So, again, a large area of storm surge, a pretty strong wind field, just enough of a component to push the water up into even Mobile Bay. So even though the storm is going to be your east, there's such a push of water into the Northeast Gulf that the expansion of the surge is going to go even west with a northerly wind. It's really, really weird, but that's exactly what's happening. Apalachicola, again, maxed at 9 to 13 feet. We're 6 to 9 at Panama City Beach if the storm goes right over us. If it goes to the west, we're going to go up to 13. All right, here, they had an emergency alert last night. And some of the storm surge, especially in places like St. Mark's and Apalachicola, are going to go 20 miles inland. 20 miles inland and forever change that area. God help St. George Island. Really. It could be gone after this storm. All right, let's talk about what 9 feet of storm surge looks like. Here's Dr. Greg Postel.
Storm surge is often the deadliest part of a hurricane. Let me show you what that looks like, starting with a 1 to 3 foot water rise above normally dry ground. Now, this might not sound like much, but remember, this is flowing water being pushed by the wind. We know that 1 to 3 foot of storm surge can knock you off your feet, stall out cars, and even carry cars away. It is too late to evacuate when the water rises to this level. But let's go above that. Let's go 3 to 6 feet, for example. Very large